A woman called Sarah brought a furry creature to a pet groomer. She told the groomer, called James, that it was a cat and needed to be groomed. James, not suspecting anything, took the creature and began to groom it. As he was cutting the creature's fur, he was shocked to discover that it was not a cat at all. The groomer turned pale and asked the woman, "Is this what I think it is?" As James brushed the cat's hair, he began to grow suspicious. There were some characteristics of this creature that didn't line up with the characteristics of a cat, but he pushed his thoughts aside and continued grooming. Or at least he tried, because something caught his eye that he couldn't ignore. As he groomed the cat, the thought of it not being a cat grew more and more in the back of his mind. So, the groomer decided to ask Sarah a few standard questions everyone with a cat should know. But when Sarah failed to answer the questions correctly, he knew something was up. Suddenly, the energy in the room shifted, and Sarah began to look very nervous. She could probably sense the groomer's suspicion. So the groomer asked her one final question. "Where did you find this creature?" But Sarah's answer shocked him. But what did Sarah bring to the groomer? And where did she find the creature? Sarah had always loved exploring the forest that surrounded her small village. She had lived there her entire life and knew every inch of the dense, tangled wilderness like the back of her hand. But today, she decided to take a new route that would lead to her discovery of the cat. Despite her extensive knowledge of the forest, Sarah was always on the lookout for new and interesting creatures to discover. She had a particular love for wild animals, and she spent much of her free time studying them and learning about their habits and behaviors. But nothing could have prepared her for what she would find today. Sarah stumbled upon a hidden cave in the woods, drawn by its sense of mystery. Curiosity drove her to explore its depths, despite growing unease. In the cave's chamber, she encountered a peculiar creature unlike any she had seen before. Despite initial apprehension, Sarah sensed the animal's friendliness and resolved to help it. The creature panicked in sunlight, prompting Sarah to coax it back outside gently. After adapting to the light, Sarah remained uncertain about the creature's identity, but decided to bring it home regardless. As Sarah walked through the village with the mysterious creature, bystanders marveled at its appearance. Some mistook it for a cat, but Sarah remained unsure. Upon arriving home, she meticulously groomed the creature, revealing its true beauty. Despite hours of online research yielding no results, Sarah sought help from a local cat groomer. Excitedly, she rushed to the groomer's shop, where they were astonished by the creature's uniqueness. However, their examination led to suspicions that it wasn't a cat. Uncertain, they called the police for further investigation. As officers arrived and began testing, Sarah felt remorseful for subjecting the creature to scrutiny. Amidst the commotion, the creature escaped through an open window, leaving Sarah startled. Realizing the creature was in danger, Sarah embarked on a mission to find it. Despite seeking assistance from the police, they refused to help, leaving her to search alone. Returning to the forest, she scoured the area for hours with no luck. Just as hope began to fade, she heard movement in the bushes and discovered the creature with newborn babies. Fearful of their safety, Sarah decided to take them home to protect them. Sneaking past police officers at her house, she found a way to bring the creatures inside unnoticed. Initially, things went smoothly as she cared for them, but when the creatures became noisy at night, the police arrived to investigate. Despite Sarah's attempts to stall them, the officers discovered the creatures, leaving her in a precarious situation. Sarah was shocked and confused and didn't know what to do. She tried to protest, but the officers were insistent, and they escorted her out of her house and into a police car. As she walked to the police car, she looked over her shoulder and almost cried at what she saw. Sarah saw multiple police officers aggressively grabbing the creatures. It was without any mercy, and Sarah just couldn't understand why the police were cruel to those tiny creatures. She squinted her eyes shut and yelled at them to be careful, but they didn't listen. It was so sad to see. As they drove to the police station, Sarah's mind raced. She thought of all the different scenarios those creatures would be put through. However, her own situation also didn't look that great. She nearly forgot that she was being arrested. Where were they taking her? Will she end up in jail? Everyone appeared to know the situation once Sarah got to the police station. Everyone appeared to be very angry with her, as she could clearly see the disgust on everyone's faces. They all behaved as if she was some sort of criminal. Sarah was then immediately put into an interrogation room. She sat there for what seemed like hours, wondering what would happen next. Finally, 2 police detectives entered the room and immediately began to question her. But Sarah wasn't so easy to break. She refused to answer any of the detectives' questions and instead demanded to speak with her lawyer. The police detectives began to employ an aggressive technique with her, which they thought could pressure Sarah. But Sarah just thought it was crazy that she was really being treated like this. But she knew she had to be careful here. Everything she said to them may be used against her. Sarah felt scared by the idea that she could be in trouble and maybe could be thrown into jail. The detective tried to intimidate Sarah, but she remained calm and refused to speak. She knew that she had the right to remain silent, and she wasn't going to say anything until she had legal representation. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah's lawyer arrived, and Sarah hoped that this interrogation horror would soon come to an end. With her lawyer by her side, Sarah explained the entire situation to the officers and, after a while, had the perfect approach and said, "Let me do the talking." The lawyer calmed Sarah down and promised her she won't end up in jail. He said that she didn't do anything wrong there. Sarah didn't break any law. The police want to frighten Sarah to get some information out of her. Then the lawyer called the police detectives back into the room. Police officers came back in, and the lawyer did all the talking. After a while, the police officers agreed with him and couldn't keep her in the police station. Sarah felt relieved that she was finally able to go, but she still wanted to know what kind of creature she had found and what would happen to them. Sarah tried to explain that she only had the creature's best interest in mind and only wanted to help the creature. She really wanted to help them and don't let them end up being these experimental animals. "That's animal abuse," she said. Then the officers looked at her and said, "Okay, we'll tell you. However, first, she had to sign a secret contract that stated she wouldn't tell anyone about anything she would learn today." Sarah agreed to this condition, and the police detectives handed over the contract. Sarah signed the entire document without reading it. She just wanted to know the truth. The officers were about to tell Sarah everything when suddenly, another officer came in and said that one of the little creatures was not doing well. The agents got up right away, and seeing that Sarah was allowed to know everything, she was allowed to follow the agents to the other room. As they were walking, the agent indicated that it was about an exceptional breed of cat that occurred in prehistoric mankind. That's why it was so special that it still existed, because they had been looking for it for decades. Sarah already had a feeling that it was a very special breed. Once arrived at the room, Sarah finally saw the tiny creatures again. One of the officers said it was a false alarm, and luckily they were all doing well. They were all healthy, as was the adult mother. Sarah didn't really dare ask, but she did anyway. "Can I take them home?" In the end, Sarah was released and allowed to keep the creatures on the condition that she find new homes for them as soon as possible. She was grateful to be able to keep the animals that she loved so much, and she worked hard to find them all new homes where they would be well cared for and loved. If this story touched you as much as it did us, you should watch this video. Woman finds strange horse in abandoned stable. Vet bursts into tears after seeing the horse. Click here to get the full story.